Hi, this is Wendy from Knitters Brewing, and I'm going to show you how you can embellish your knitting with embroidery. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the duplicate stitch. Here I have a little sample of it, kind of looks like a little heart. And the duplicate stitch is generally done on a stockinette background. And what you do is, using your embroidery thread and needle, you create stitches that look like knit stitches right on top of the existing knitting stitches. And by doing that, you can create areas of color that look a lot like you've done intarsia. So it's a nice alternative to doing a little color work without having to do intarsia. And one thing I want to mention about this is, as you're doing it, you want to work back and forth as you embroider your stitches on, just like you do when you knit. And they lay down much more nicely when you do it that way. If you do your stitches in columns up and down, they are not going to cover the area as smoothly as it does when you work back and forth. So let's see how to get started on the duplicate stitch. To get started, you want to bring your needle up to do the stitch that is the lowest one in your design and to the most right. So mine happens to be in the middle. So this is the first stitch we're going to do. Normally you have some sort of a chart you're working with where the color is shown in a square grid, and each stitch is one of the squares. We're just going to follow what I'm doing here. So to do the first stitch, we've brought the yarn up at the base of the stitch that I'm going to cover. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here. So each stitch, if you imagine it looks like a V, I'm at the base of this stitch and it's the one I'm going to cover. So now to cover it, I'm going to insert my needle from right to left. Oops, this is the one I'm going to cover, in the one that's above the one that I plan to cover. All right. And then pull the needle through. And you can see I've covered now the right leg of the stitch. Now to cover the left leg, I'm going to reinsert it. And as I do that, I think ahead to where the next stitch I'm going to do is. So I'm going to go up here to the next row, which is these three, and I'm going to do this one on the left. So I'm going to bring my yarn up one row above where I was and one stitch to the left. So that finishes the first stitch and also sets me up for the next stitch, which is going to be covering this one right here. Now in this row, I'm going to work left to right. So I'm going to insert my needle from the left side of the stitch just above the one I worked. And now I'm going to reinsert it at the base where I started. The next stitch I want to do is starts right in the first one I did. And again, I'm going to work one more. All right, we're at the end of these three. So now I'm going to plan my next row, which is a row of 5, and we're going to start on this end and work back to the left. So I need to bring my yarn up one stitch to the right and one above where I ended this one. And that will be right here. Okay, now I'm going to do 5 stitches going across this direction. So I'm going to go back to working from right to left. And moving over 1 stitch at a time. So I won't do the whole design for you. I think you've got the idea now. But this can be used to make any shape of design. It can be used to add stripes or plaid features, polka dots, anything you want. You can even use it to correct errors when you're doing intarsia color work. It's very handy for that. All right. So that is the duplicate stitch.